I find it fascinating that when I look at the back end of this podcast behind the scenes, of all the many thousands of people who listen to this show every single month, so few of them have actually hit that follow button, and even fewer have ever left us a rating or a review. If you enjoy the podcast and you get value out of it, then I would ask that you do us a solid and just take a small moment to hit that follow button. And if you want to go just one little step further, take a second to rate and review the show. It means nothing to you, but it means everything to me. And you just taking a small amount of your time to support the show is going to allow me to expand the reach of this podcast, bring it to more and more people, and continue to bring you more and more value every single week. So wherever you are right now, just take one moment, tap that follow button, and if you want to go just a little step further, leave us a rating and a review. Thank you so much for listening in and supporting the show. Thank you for being here today, and let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane here with you today. As always, looking forward to diving in. Today, we're talking about the line between true interest and emotional manipulation, right? The line between true interest and emotional manipulation. And what the idea behind this episode is, as we dive into it, is that there's been some conversation on my Instagram recently and some posts I put up and some things that people are saying. And, been talking a little bit about, how to gauge real interest from fake interest, or how to interrupt love bombing when somebody is love bombing you, right? And these kinds of things that we experience in the dating world where, we might be getting to know someone and it might seem really good. It might seem like, oh, this is everything I wanted. And then a couple of weeks from now, it all falls apart and we're like, I thought it was everything I wanted. I thought I had found my person, or I thought this was everything I was looking for. And then it fell apart so fast, right? And how did it go from that to this? And what did I miss? What did I not see, right? Like, it felt so genuine. It felt so real. It felt like something I could hold on to. What did I miss? What did I not see, right? And so that's what I want to talk about today. How do we tell true, genuine, sincere, heartfelt interest from someone who's just telling us what we want to hear, right? From someone who might be love bombing us or saying the perfect thing or doing the perfect thing just to get what they want from us, but they're really not sincere or they're not interested in something long-term. And I think part of this conversation is also that it's not always a lack of sincerity, right? It doesn't mean that somebody is always lying, but I think the reality is sometimes people feel something in week 1 and week 2 that they don't feel in week 3 and week 4. Right. And so there might be a degree of people who are intentionally emotionally manipulative, people who are lying, people who are gassing us up with things that they know we want to hear. And then there might be people who may be caught up in a feeling or caught up in an emotion that is ultimately fleeting. Right. And they might feel it very strongly in week 1 or week 2, but in week 3 and week 4, it's just not there. And maybe there's a hot and cold dynamic where they feel it and then they don't, and then they feel it and then they don't, and they give these really inconsistent signals. And so I want to just kind of talk about all of this today and explore, like, how do we discern true interest from emotional manipulation? How do we navigate these kind of hot and cold scenarios, right? How do we know what to give our heart to, what to invest in, what to open ourselves to? And how do we know when to hold ourselves back? And, I think there are a couple aspects to this conversation. And one is what's happening with other people, right? So we need to be able to figure out what's happening with them. Is their interest hot and cold? Does it wax and does it wane? Does it get strong and then they withdraw and then it's strong again and then they withdraw? Or does it, are they like being like actually emotionally manipulative and they're just lying or just boosting our head up with things that they know we want to hear? Or, are they genuinely like sincere and they're just trying to do the right thing and trying to be a good person? I think sometimes somebody who is falling in love can love bomb you, but it's not insincere, right? It's just like they really feel it. They really want it. And so they're going all in. Like that can happen too. And then I think part of it is what's happening with other people and being able to really discern and gauge what's going on with them on their side. But the other part of it is what's going on with me, right? What's going on with us inside our world. And what's happening for me that might have me buy into someone's love bombing, or that might have me buy into someone's emotional manipulation, that might have me believe something that doesn't really fit where the relationship is. I think sometimes, if someone makes strong declarations of love very early on in a relationship, or they show you like inappropriate interest, and when I say inappropriate, I don't mean like sexually inappropriate or anything like that. But what I mean is that when somebody's level of interest is not appropriate for the level at which you know each other, right? So you've known each other for 2 weeks and they're like, oh my God, like you're my dream person. It's like, well, we've been on like 3 dates. Like you don't really know me that well. How are you saying that I'm your dream person? Right? You should probably get to know me a little better before you start saying things like that. And I think there's a level at which we don't want to call that stuff out because we want to believe it. And I'm going to talk about some of that today as well. So there's a lot to cover in today's conversation, right? And I want to kind of touch on all these different things. So to start, let's just talk about some of the basics, right? Like what does genuine, clear, heartfelt interest look like? And I'll say from a secure person, right? Because there are people who might be very insecure and their interest might look a little different. But genuine, heartfelt interest from a secure person should be sincere, right? It should be consistent. It should be like consistent effort, but it's not going to necessarily be overbearing, right? So they might not call you every day. They might not text you every day. They might not, like it might not be over the top. It might not be like, so like they want to talk to you or see you all the time, but it might look like they check in at least a few times a week. It might look like they ask you on dates consistently, right? Like they want to get to know you consistently. They want to see you again and again and again and again. So that like in just very basic terms, I think that's what like in the early stages, that's what we want to be looking for. Not someone who wants to see me all the time, not someone who like wants to, and look, there's a spectrum here, right? I'm not saying it's bad if they want to talk to you every day. Right? Like it's okay if they want to talk to you every day, but they're also like when somebody's secure, they also have other things going on in their life, right? When somebody's secure, there's also a level at which they're like, I have other things going on in my life. I have my own interests, my own hobbies, my own friends, my own things that I have going on. And I'm just barely getting to know this person. It's a little bit weird if I'm just barely getting to know someone and all of a sudden they become the central focus of my life. That's a little bit imbalanced. And I'm not saying it's toxic. I'm not saying like if that happens that that person is inherently toxic, but I'm saying pay attention. And if that's you, if that happens to you, pay attention to yourself. Because there might be a level within yourself where you want to take a deep breath and say, you know what? I just saw this person. Yes, I'm feeling attracted. I'm feeling excited about this. I want to see them again. But let me just take a deep breath. Let me just take a step back and let me focus on other areas of my life and let me balance this energy within myself so I don't just let too much of myself go to them too quickly. And that's not game playing. That's not inauthentic. That's you practicing healthy, balanced relational skills. I'm not saying that you play like hot and cold games or that you intentionally neglect anybody or that you try to maintain some kind of upper hand over them, like, look how cool I am. I don't need you. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying when too much of you is going to someone too quickly, while continuing to be authentic and genuine and emotionally available to them, you can also just take a deep breath and step back. I think one of the best skills that we can practice is like letting it breathe for a few days. Right? Just let it breathe for a few days. And if it makes you anxious to let it breathe for a few days, good. Rather than needing to immediately fix that anxiety by getting another hit of validation from them, which if you've noticed, if you've ever been caught in that cycle, you probably noticed that you get one hit and you get another hit and you get another hit, but it's never enough. Anytime you get one hit, they text you, they call you, they show you some interest and you're like, oh, I feel so good. And then some time goes by and then you need another one. And then you need another one. Like there's no end to it. So if you feel anxious letting the relationship breathe, good. Rather than continuing to look to them to resolve the anxiety, practice being with that anxiety, right? Okay, I feel anxious. I haven't heard from them in a day or two, but let me just take a deep breath. Let me just relax. Let me just give the relationship some space. I'll let it breathe. I can't lose anything that's really meant for me. If their interest is truly sincere, I'm going to hear from them again. And we let it breathe. And I think in the early stages, I mean, look, if you're in a committed relationship, I think there's a reasonable expectation to hear from someone every day. When you get to the point where it feels where you're like exclusive with each other and you're not you're exclusive and like, you know, you're clear that you're building a relationship, it makes sense to hear from that person every day. But in the early stages, when you're just getting to know someone, practice letting it breathe. And if they are able to let it breathe, that's actually healthy. That actually shows you that they're secure. So let's talk about some of what maybe the emotionally manipulative things could look like. And I just want to go over in the beginning some of these basics and then I'll tie it all together. So emotional manipulation could look like love bombing, right? Over the top affection too soon, intense promises of a future, excessive compliments. And I want you to think about like, if you've been on 3 dates with someone, let's just say 3 dates, right? Maybe you've been talking for 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, you've been on 3 dates and they are already making statements like they want to have a long-term future with you. They're already making overwhelming declarations of feelings. That's not a good sign. And this is one of those things where we've also got to check in with ourselves because a lot of us are so eager to have somebody be that way. A lot of us are so eager to hear that from someone that when somebody says that, we're just like, oh yes, finally, somebody wants me. But that's not a good sign after 3 dates. Like when somebody is that interested in it after just a couple of dates, what's happening is one of two things. Either they're full of shit and they're just telling you what you want to hear to rope you in, to hook you, or they're very insecure in themselves. And they need to kind of latch onto the relationship because they don't feel very secure. Neither one is a good sign. And if you receive that from someone, and it doesn't like spark a little bit of an alarm bell in you, that's your own insecurity latching on. So I just want to presence that, right? If someone starts love bombing you after 2 or 3 dates, making promises about a future together, making overwhelming declarations of feeling, telling you that you're like the hottest thing since sliced bread and they've never met anyone like you, and like and that doesn't create an alarm bell in you to some degree, you're like, whoa, this is a lot. That's something for you to check in with yourself. Because that should create a little bit of an alarm bell. And like, I think we need to check our egos a little bit, because it's like, if someone barely knows me and they're already making overwhelming declarations about their feeling or about the future they want, I think the trap we fall into there is we want to believe that I'm just so great that somebody would meet me just a few times and they would know I'm the one. There's just something so amazing about me. And look, you are amazing. We're all amazing. I'm not taking anything from anybody. We're all amazing. But if somebody feels that much that quickly, I got to break the news to you. That is not about you. That's about them. They're not seeing you. They're seeing their projection of you. And as I mentioned already, it's either an intentional manipulation that they're just gassing you up and telling you what you want to hear so they can manipulate you, or there's something going on with them that actually has nothing to do with you, where they've projected this vision and this ideal onto you, and they just want it so much, and they're just gonna like, again, like, what's wrong with that is that they're not even seeing you, and that on some level they're not even interested in seeing you. They just want you to be the thing that they're looking for. And so for all of you who are listening to this, like, what I want you to ground yourself in is, I don't want to be just a pawn in someone else's game. I don't want to just be something that someone projects all their needs and wishes and desires onto and then just expects me to fulfill that role. I want someone who is genuinely curious about getting to know me. I want someone who has a sincere interest in getting to know me. And someone who has a sincere interest in getting to know you is not going to move too quickly. Now, what is appropriate? Again, let's say like 2-3 dates in. What is appropriate? I'm really enjoying our time together. You seem like a really wonderful person. I would like to see you again. I've really been enjoying our interactions, right? I'd like to continue seeing where this goes. I loved what you said about this or about that. Some reasonable compliments, like, I think you're beautiful. I think you're intelligent. I think you're a lot of fun to be around. I like what I see so far, and I'm interested in more. Right? In the early stages, that's what's appropriate. And rather than wanting a declaration of love or a declaration of commitment or an over the top statement about how they feel, I think we want to presence ourselves to wait for those kinds of statements or to look for those kinds of statements. And in our hierarchy of what we're looking for, those kinds of statements should actually be like the optimal thing. Right? I don't want the overwhelming declaration. I don't want the unreasonable promises. I don't want the intense expression of feeling. What I actually want is the stable, grounded, realistic words. And what goes hand in hand with that are the stable, realistic, grounded actions. And I think, I want to address this because I think we live in a little bit of a culture of connection deprivation. I mean, I know a lot of you will probably relate to that. And there's this feeling that quality connection is rare. It doesn't happen very often. It's hard to find. And a lot of us might go on a lot of dates with people or be on the dating apps, have a lot of conversations. And it feels like those interactions and conversations and dates we go on very rarely ignite a spark or feel great to us. And because we're in that connection deprivation, it's a mentality, but I don't just want to call it a mentality because I think there's some objective reality to it as well. But because we're living in that context of connection deprivation, when we feel that spark, there's a tendency to cling to it. When somebody makes that overwhelming declaration, especially if we like them in return, there's a tendency to I don't want to let this go. And something I want to say here is that, there are people who know how to play the game. Right? There are people, and I'll speak to the women for a moment because look, there are women who know how to play the game too, but I think women are maybe a little more susceptible to this than men are because of the social dynamics and the way things are. And I think there are men who know how to play the game. And they're good at it. And these are men who probably, for whatever reason, their level of attractiveness, their level of charisma, they have the certain thing that a lot of women are looking for. Like I've found a very interesting statistic recently where the top 10, I don't even like saying the top 10% because it makes it sound like these men are better. But in terms of attractiveness, charisma, like the things that a lot of women are instantly attracted to, the top 10% of men are having almost all the sex. And there's this other 90% of men that can't really get laid to save their lives. And I bring this up because I think a lot of the guys who are in that top 10% are very familiar with getting that kind of attention. They're, whether naturally or whether they practice some kind of pickup artistry, but they know what to say. They know how to say it. They know how to play the game. They're very used to getting that kind of attention. And I'm not saying they're all manipulative psychos, but some of them are. But I'm not saying they're all like that. But I think even in a more balanced perspective, yes, some of them are just straight up narcissists. But even in a more balanced perspective, I think what happens for a lot of those people is they really enjoy playing the game. And it's real for them when they play it. Right? So yes, there's the certain group that They just lie and say whatever they want and just, completely emotionally detached. And those are people that you really got to watch out for. But then there's this other group of people that they just really love playing the game, and it's real for them when they're playing it, but their emotions are constantly changing. So when they're connected to you, they're connected and it feels good and they're in it and what they say is real in that moment. But then you wonder, well, why are they so hot and cold? Well, it was real in that moment, but tomorrow they might meet someone else and the experience they have with that person might be real in that moment. And the experience they had with you is now kind of in the past. They're not as connected to it. And I think we've got to recognize that the men who are in this top 10%, again, I hate saying top 10% because it makes it sound like they're better. And I don't think they're better. I think, emotionally they're sometimes underdeveloped. But the men who are in this top 10% who are having all the sex, they have so many options available to them. Like the data on dating apps shows that men in this top 10% get like 10 times the dates and 10 times the swipes than any other man on the platform. And it's a very small percentage. And so the men who are in this top percentage have so much attention and so much access that it's really tough for them to highly value a sincere connection with a woman. And this is just reality. And I think what needs to happen for a man like that is they need to play it out. They need to go through all the relationships, sleep with all the women that they need to sleep with until that kind of shallow connection just starts to feel so empty for them that they finally get to a place where they're like, I want something real. I think the mistake that a lot of women fall into, the trap that a lot of women fall into here, is they say, I want to be the one who changes that guy. Here's this guy, he's attractive, he's charismatic, he's intelligent, he's in that top 10%. All the women want him. And I want to be the one who's enough to have him pick me, even though he has all of these options. And what I want to say for the ladies out there is there's not going to be any one woman who's going to make him do that. And I've coached a lot of these men. Like I've had a lot of these men come to me like in their 40s and their 50s after they've been doing this for decades. And they feel empty and broken and crushed inside because they've never had a genuine heartfelt connection in their whole life. And they're like, I need to change. I don't know what to do. But there's not going to be any one woman who makes that man give up all his sexual exploits and be like, okay, I'm ready for commitment now. That's going to be something that he finds within himself in his own journey. And yes, sometimes men do get there on their own. But it's not because a woman made them get there. It's not because they met the perfect person and then they're like, okay, I'm done. And I do think that's a trap a lot of women fall into. Now, I want to speak to the other side of it as well, because a lot of women might be like, well, then what am I supposed to do? Just lower my standards? Am I supposed to like go after the lower 40% of men? They're not attractive. They're not charismatic, right? Like, so no, it's not about lowering your standards. I talked about this a little bit last week in the episode. I talked about refining your standards. And that's part of the conversation, right? Is refining the standards, starting to look for different things. But what I think needs to happen here is the non-negotiables that you're looking for in a relationship. Hey there, listeners. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you really prioritized your mental health? If life feels overwhelming, stressful, or just plain chaotic, I've got something that could truly make a difference. I want to introduce you to Aura, the #1 app for emotional wellness. Aura offers personalized mindfulness and mental health support that fits your life. Whether you're looking for guided meditations, soothing sleep sounds, life coaching, or breathwork exercises, Aura has something for everyone. The best part? It's tailored specifically to you. Aura learns your preferences and creates a daily routine that supports your unique emotional needs. Now, here's the exciting part. As part of my podcast family, Aura is giving you an exclusive 7-day free trial. That's a full week to explore their library of thousands of wellness tools and discover what works best for you. So take this opportunity to reset, recharge, and show up for yourself. Head to the link in the show notes right below wherever you're listening to this podcast to claim your 7-day free trial. Don't wait. Your mental wellness is worth it. Let Aura help you find peace, balance, and clarity right at your fingertips. Go ahead. Try it today. You deserve it. If you've ever felt like you're stuck in the same painful patterns, questioning why love feels so hard, or struggling to find the deep connection you know you deserve, there's something I want to share with you. The Inspired Love program is an 8-week journey designed to help you break free from toxic cycles, heal the wounds of your past, and prepare yourself to attract and sustain the conscious, fulfilling love that you've been searching for. This isn't just another course. It's a deeply personal experience that will reconnect you to your inherent worth, clear the barrier standing between you and love, and help you create a solid foundation for the healthy, conscious relationship you've always dreamed about. Together in a small and intimate group, we'll tackle the deepest fears and insecurities holding you back and emerge on the other side, free to live and love in alignment with your highest self. Our next journey begins soon, and space is limited to keep the group focused, supportive, and intimate. Whether you're single, recovering from heartbreak, or ready to heal and transform your current relationship, this program will give you the tools, guidance, and connection you need to rewrite your story and create the love you deserve. So don't wait. Love starts with you, and there's no better time than now to take this step. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more and claim your spot in this life-changing program. I want you to be part of this journey because you're worth it, and the love you desire is closer than you think. So let's do this together. I actually gave this exercise to a woman last night. She was in my 7-day challenge, and we were doing a live Q&A, and this came up, and I gave her this exact exercise. I said, I want you to really get clear about your non-negotiables. And not what the person looks like or how much money they make or how tall they are or anything like that. But what do you need to experience from a man to really trust him? To really say, I can rely on this person. Things like consistent investment. Things like emotional transparency. Things like respect for your boundaries. Things like no hidden agenda, right? He's not just saying what you want to hear, but he's aligning his words with his actions. And he's doing that consistently over and over and over again, right? So what needs to happen for the ladies out there is you've got to get clear on these non-negotiables. And you've got to practice a degree of patience as you get to know someone and wait to see if these non-negotiables show up. I know I said earlier that, this man who has unlimited access to women is not going to change for any one woman, and that's mostly true. But if there is something that would make him change, or if he's on that balance point of, getting ready to change, and there's something that would tip him over the edge, this is what will do it. This is what will tip him over the edge. It'll be you being different than all the women he meets. And so what I mean by that is this guy is very used to getting attention. He's very used to women kind of chasing him or women wanting something with him. He's he doesn't ever get called out. He doesn't ever get challenged. And so what's going to make a statement to a guy like this is you being the one to call him out, you being the one to challenge him, you being the one to not be like obsessively interested in him, you being the one who's willing to walk away. That's going to be a stark contrast to everything he's used to with women. And so, and I don't look, I want to be clear. I'm not saying to go find one of these guys and show up this way as a game to try to change them. Like, please don't do that. That's not going to end well for you. It's not going to end well for anyone. But what I'm saying is, if you start to operate like this across the board, not to get somebody, not to prove yourself, not to change or fix anyone, or not to be chosen by someone, but because you start to authentically operate as the chooser. That's what this is about. And so if you get clear on your non-negotiables, again, I need consistent investment. I need emotional transparency. I need respect for my boundaries. I need to see that their actions align with their words. And I need to see this play out over time. And if you get emotionally connected to your own standards, rather than being so intensely emotionally connected to how attracted you are to somebody, that changes everything. And a lot of people have said to me, like, and I work primarily with women. I've coached a lot of men too, but I work primarily with women. And I find that this is an issue that a lot of women confront, is that the feeling that I'm attracted to who I'm attracted to, and I can't change that. And that's actually not true. I've seen so many people change their attractions. And what I just said is the way to do it. You would change, you change your attractions by becoming emotionally connected to your standards. And so on the surface, it might be like, wow, this person's really attractive. Wow, they're really sexy. Wow, they're really charismatic. I really like them. They're funny. They make me laugh. I feel good. Like, there's that level. But I want everyone who's listening right now to check in with this. When you think about being attracted to someone on those levels, the superficial levels, the charisma, the physical attraction, the excitement, and you really feel into that, don't you feel a little anxiety with that? Right? Like, just think about that for a moment. When you think about that level of attraction, doesn't that feel a little uncomfortable? A little scary? Like you feel a little anxious? It harkens back to like that feeling we got in middle school when we had a crush on someone. And it's like, do I like them? Do they like me? It's like, it's not really a good feeling. But what we've learned to do is to operate over that feeling. When you really recognize how deeply ingrained this is, it's a little bit of a mind fuck when you're like, holy shit. What I thought felt good my whole life was actually me feeling bad. What I thought felt like love was really me being afraid of not getting love. And that's one level of attraction. And so what happens is you can start feeling into something that's deeper than that level of attraction. Something that feels safe. And this is what I talk about when I say becoming emotionally connected to your standards. Where it's like, yeah, physical attraction is great. But you know what's even better? is someone who hears me when I communicate a boundary and really honors it. Yeah, physical attraction is great, but you know what's even better? Is when I communicate a need to someone and they actually hear it and they make an effort to fulfill it. The one level is this kind of anxious attraction. But the other level is this, like, it's an attraction that feels like home. I remember one time when I was a little kid and I was out I was out playing in the snow. There was a snow day, school got canceled, and me and my friends were all out in the snow. And there were a couple of kids in the neighborhood I hung out with, and they didn't bully me most of the time, but this day they decided to bully me for whatever reason. I don't really know why. It was like a weird thing. But they were my friends overall, but they just bullied me that day. And we were building snowmen and having snowball fights, and they just like ganged up on me and they just like pelted me with snowballs, and then they pushed me down and like rolled me around in the snow. And I remember I was like shivering. I was like so cold. And I just got up and I walked home because I was like so cold. And my mom, my mom was there when I got home. And I remember she opened up the oven and she like put a chair in front of the oven and she opened up the oven and she turned the oven on because we were poor. We didn't have a fireplace or anything, but she put me in this chair in front of the oven and she turned the oven on and just bundled me up in blankets. And I just sat there in front of the oven and it was so warm and cozy. And I'm like, I want a relationship that feels like that. The way it felt when my mom turned the oven on and just bundled me up in blankets and just, right? Like that's a different kind of attraction. And I think every single one of us has that inside of us. Right? Every single one of us can access that place inside of us where it's like, I want to feel like that. But we're just not used to it. We're used to operating on this more superficial level. And so often when I talk about this, it's like there's an idea that we have to lower our standards, or so I'm going to be with someone who makes me feel safe, but I'm not going to be attracted to them. And I think we don't understand that. No, when you're connected on that level, you will be attracted. The physical attraction, the sexual attraction, it will be there. It's not about settling for anything, but sometimes it doesn't look the way you thought it had to look. That's what I'm getting at here. Sometimes it doesn't look the way you thought it had to look. There might be someone who, when you first meet them on a first date, it's like, they're good looking, they're attractive, they're intelligent. You know, I can tell they have a lot of going for them. I don't really feel that spark. But maybe that's good, because if I don't feel that spark, I also don't feel anxious. I also don't feel uneasy or feel like I need to prove myself or win their love. And so if I can not lose interest immediately because I don't feel that spark, what I can do is I can start to get to know them on a level that's not that superficial attraction. And I can start to have deep conversations with them. I can start to converse with them. I can start to share my heart with them and see if they have the capacity to share their heart with me. I can communicate things like needs and boundaries and desires and dreams. And I can see if they're able to hold those things, if they have space to really receive and engage with me on that level. And what I might find is even if that initial spark wasn't there, when we start forming this emotional bond, what might emerge is a level of attraction bigger than anything I've ever known before. And I'm not just theorizing about this. Like, it's happened to me. I see it happen to my clients all the time. Like, this isn't just a theory. Like, this is real. And so I think what needs to happen, like going back to the idea of how do we tell the line between true interest and emotional manipulation? Well, what we need to do is, one, access that level within ourselves, and then two, prioritize that level in a relationship. Right? Like, we've got to get in touch with that part of ourselves and prioritize that experience in a relationship. So I see a question right now I just want to speak into as a part of this. She's asking, so how do we communicate our needs without them just discarding us because they have endless options? Now, I want you to think about what you're saying right now. Like, really think about the question you just asked. If you communicate your needs to someone and they discard you because they have endless options, is that someone you really want? I mean, think about that. Like, what kind of person must that be? How shallow must that person be where it's like, oh, you have needs? I have too many options to give a fuck about your needs, so bye. Why would you want that person? See, this is the mind fuck that we've got to get out of. Thinking that just because they have a lot of options, that inherently makes them valuable. That's the mindset we've got to outgrow. So the answer is, you communicate your needs and you see who has a big enough heart to actually receive those needs. And this is what I was just saying, is you start to prioritize that as what you're looking for in a relationship, rather than finding someone you're attracted to on these superficial levels and then trying to figure out, how do I have to be to get them to pick me? And just as a side note to that, as long as you're thinking, how do I have to be to get someone to pick me? Nobody's ever going to pick you. And that's a hard truth right there, but I say it with a lot of love. The only person who would pick you in an environment like that is someone who is so insecure themselves that they need your need to boost their ego, or someone who just wants to manipulate that for their own selfish interests. See, like, you can't fake out the universe. Security attracts security. Insecurity attracts insecurity. So when you're going, how do I have to be? How do I have to communicate my needs? What do I have to do to get them to pick me above all their other options? You're going to attract someone who just wants to use you and manipulate you. Or you're going to attract someone who is so insecure that they need you. Neither is a healthy foundation for a relationship. But when you're operating from a place where I know what my non-negotiables are, I know what my needs are in a relationship, I know how I need someone to show up for me, and I'm going to be myself authentically, I'm going to create my boundaries, I'm going to express my needs, and I'm going to find someone who can meet me on that level, that is how you, that's not only how you find the right person, but it's also how you protect yourselves from the wrong people. Right? So where's the line between emotional manipulation and sincere interest? Here's the line. someone that you can have these conversations with, someone that can hear you, someone that can hold your heart, and someone that just not does it one time when you're in a moment of romantic intensity, but someone who can do that consistently. That's how you know. And so what this requires from us, like, yeah, I think, there's a little bit too much conversation about like, look out for the red flags. It's really like a defeating perspective, because I don't really need to know what all the red flags are and be on guard against them. What I need to know is what my non-negotiables are. And I need to have the emotional regulation skills to be patient and to be discerning and to step back and observe this relationship from a dispassionate place, to ask the questions that I want the answers to share my dreams and my desires and my vision and my needs, and give someone space to figure out how they feel about those things and if they can reciprocate them. And give the relationship time to unfold, because none of this can be done in a week or in 2 weeks. When I'm coaching someone, I say give it 3 months before you make any real decisions about a relationship. Like 3 months of consistently dating someone before you even decide if there's someone you want to be with. And that's really not even that long, but to some people that feels like a long time, because we go on a couple of dates with someone and we're expecting them to be that person for us. And then the opposite extreme is that we let it go on for too long, right? 11, 12 months, and I'm just waiting without any clarity about where I stand. But if you're getting to know someone for 3 months, and in that time you've been authentic and you've been communicating and you've been observing the relationship dispassionately, and you've been asking the questions, and they've been consistent and they continue to show up, they continue to make the effort, there continues to be a healthy reciprocation between you. Doesn't mean you're talking every single day. It's okay if you are, but maybe you're checking in every few days and you're going on dates consistently and you have phone calls here and there. And, there's a rapport between you and you're having heartfelt conversations and you're expressing your desires and they're expressing their desires and there's alignment between those desires. And this has been building for about 3 months. That's an appropriate amount of time to say, hey, I really enjoy what we've shared together so far. I think this could go somewhere. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about being exclusive? Let's get off the dating apps. Let's really sincerely give this a chance. A lot of people are like, I went on 2 dates with him and he's still on the dating apps. Of course he's still on the dating apps. It's been 2 dates. You haven't had a conversation about getting off of them. Why would he be off of them? And some people don't want to hear that, but that's where we've got to manage our own insecurity. Give somebody a chance to sincerely get to know us. Like the idea that they're going to go on a couple dates with me and want to be with me. Like if somebody does, like that's a red flag. They don't know you well enough to want to be with you. And honestly, you don't know them well enough to want to be with them either. So if you're attaching to people that quickly, or if people are attaching to you that quickly, there's something else driving the bus there, and it's not something healthy. And so a couple of things I want to say, just like practical things we can put in place as we get to know someone. I mentioned this already, but I'll just revisit it. Having a 3-month timeline. And yes, it could extend to 4 months. It could happen earlier in 2 months, right? These aren't hard rules, but they're guidelines. But having a 3-month timeline that, like, if I've been sincerely engaging with someone, we've been seeing each other regularly, we've been talking regularly, there's consistency, there's rapport, and we've been together for 3 months. At that point, I would like to be exclusive with them. I would like to get off the dating apps and be giving this relationship a real chance. And if they're not willing to do that, if we talk about it 3 months in and we're getting into the 4th month and nothing's really changing, like, that person is starting to break my non-negotiables. This relationship is starting to go into territory that I can't go into. And that is, like, I think the mind fuck that a lot of us are in and what we need to break is, like, I like this person so much. I've invested so much in them. I don't want to lose them after 3 months. But really, once you get connected to your truth and your heart, if you've invested that much with them in 3 months and they're not reciprocating, I understand that's going to hurt a little bit. I'm not saying that you won't have an emotional reaction to that it won't be disappointing or sad. Of course it will be. And I got a lot of compassion for the disappointment and the sadness that's related to that experience. But there's also something that, like, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's going to disappoint me and make me sad. I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's going to let me down after we've shared so much together. And so, yes, while it's disappointing, while it's sad, at the same time, this person is also becoming unattractive to me because my heart is not safe with them. Because I have valued our connection so much more than they have. And that in and of itself is unattractive when I am connected to my truth and my needs and my non-negotiables. So while there's a pain of loss or a disappointment, it doesn't prevent this situation from becoming unappealing to me. Now, within that 3 months, something you should absolutely do is create some boundaries. Like, I think creating boundaries should be a requirement for every relationship before you become too invested, because you need to know if this person can handle the fact that you have boundaries. I think a great one for women, and there's no judgment about this, but a great one for women is having a boundary around physical intimacy. And a lot of women, and I get this, but a lot of women are like, well, why should I have to have a boundary around physical intimacy? Like, I don't want it as much as he does. Well, here's just the simple truth about it. And some people aren't going to want to hear this. Even if you want it as much as he does, there's a much higher chance that when a man sleeps with a woman early on, and I don't have time to go into the studies today, but there's science behind this, like scientific studies about how the male sex hormones work and how he needs to feel oxytocin to form a bond with a woman. And that testosterone, which is the male sex hormone, actually blocks oxytocin. And so when he has high levels of testosterone, that's actually going to block his experience to bond closely with a woman. But if you wait a little while and let him regulate into the relationship and his testosterone goes down, it's also replaced with other hormones like norepinephrine and things like that. But as his testosterone levels go down a little bit, he'll be more likely to form a bond. That's just some really simple science about what's happening for a man. But besides that, there's a cultural narrative that if a man has sex with a woman and he feels a little uncomfortable afterwards, or he feels like, was I good enough? Or is she talking to her friends about me? Or am I big enough? Or whatever. Like there's a cultural narrative where he can walk away from that, never talk to her again, and walk away feeling like a big man because he got his. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that's fucked up, but I think there's a strong cultural pull for men to operate that way. And so one of the most clear boundaries that a woman can have that really truly reveals the character of a man is to say, I'm not ready to sleep together yet. And I understand, ladies, like you might want it just as much as he does. It doesn't change the fact that when a woman has sex, her sex hormones are a lot more likely to bond closely than his are. So while there may be equal desire on both sides, the ramifications are not equal. And if you wait that period, I'm not saying you need to wait a full 3 months, but it's fine if you do. A lot of women, the boundary that they set is like, I want to be exclusive first. I want to know that we're not going to be seeing other people once we start sleeping together. I think that's a very reasonable boundary. And that's something you could communicate early on. Like, look, I really like you. Yes, you're making out and stuff. And it's like, look, I really want to go there. But I think we should take the time to get to know each other and become exclusive before we take it there. Like, that's what would make me feel safe in this relationship. And if he's like, well, I'll be exclusive right now, like, that's a little bit of a red flag. Is he just telling you what you want to hear? Well, how do you know? You know by saying, well, why don't we think about it? Why don't we think about it, give it some thought, figure out if this is what we really want, and we'll revisit the conversation. So setting boundaries, I use that one because it's a really obvious example, but setting boundaries and seeing if that person can respect your boundaries is super powerful. Communicating vision, needs, and desire, right? Like, what are you looking for? What do you want? Having the conversation, even early on, even, first couple of dates, first couple of phone calls. Like, I want you to know that I'm looking for a long-term partner. And if we continue seeing each other, if I continue becoming emotionally involved, that is where I'm going to want this to go. And I understand it's early and we're not there yet, but I just want you to be aware of that. How do you feel about that? Right? Can they be on the same page with you about some of these things? This is what the first 3 months is for. It's to talk about your boundaries, to talk about your needs, to talk about your desire. In addition to seeing how much attraction is there, seeing how much you like the person, seeing how emotionally available they are, right? That 3-month period is the period where you discover, do they meet some of these basic non-negotiables? Are they able to meet some of my basic foundational needs in a relationship? And so I want to sum up this whole conversation in just this last minute or so. The way that you know the difference between emotional manipulation, love bombing, somebody just telling you what you want to hear and lying to you, or true sincere interest, is by being emotionally connected to your needs, your non-negotiables. And then giving the relationship some time and some space to discover if this relationship can meet those needs and those non-negotiables. If someone's coming on really strong, hey, I really appreciate your interest. Thank you. Like it's very flattering. But I'm aware that we don't know each other that well yet. And I would just like to take the time to get to know each other and see how we feel then. I know from my past that, people can have really strong feelings in the beginning and those feelings can fade. So I want to take some time and, give it a couple of months and let's keep talking and let's see if this emotion grows stronger or if it fades. That's a boundary right there. Right? I don't want your overwhelming declarations of love and intention. I want you to show me. I want you to show me that this isn't just a hot feeling, but that there's something of substance here. So by being connected to yourself on this level, you develop the ability to call it forward from someone else. So thank you everybody for being on with me today. Lots of love, lots of blessings. It's always a pleasure. I'll be back with you next week. Take care. Lots of love. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you'd leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.